How do we define a living wage? General definition is living wage is a wage sort of high enough to maintain a normal standard of living, sort of vague, okay? So how can we make it more specific? Well, living wage means you can afford shelter, food, and basic necessities of life without using more than 30% of your income towards housing alone. So a study was done by the National Low Income Housing Coalition, and it points out, maybe not surprisingly, but really disappointingly, that no one in the United States working full-time, making the minimum wage, can afford a two-bedroom apartment in any of the 50 states of the United States of America. Not in Arkansas, not in Wyoming, in no U.S. state, regardless of cost of living based on the federal minimum wage. Working full-time at the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour is roughly $15,000 a year. Full-time minimum wage workers anywhere in the country would have to make about twice that in order to afford a two-bedroom apartment. An American making the federal minimum wage of $7.25 would have to work 95 hours a week or more than two full-time jobs to afford a two-bedroom apartment. If you're a single mom working 40 hours a week at minimum wage and you want to have your own room, tough luck. Alaska, Washington, Colorado, Florida, Virginia, Illinois, you have to make over $20 an hour to afford at full-time a two-bedroom apartment. In California, you've got to make $30 an hour to be able to afford a two-bedroom apartment. In Washington, D.C., $33 an hour. In Hawaii, $35 an hour. And as you're going to see here, almost anywhere you're going to find something that's near the threshold. You are going to need to earn, according to this graphic, $21.21 on average to afford a two-bedroom apartment. Why can't these people just stop being so poor, Pat, and pull themselves up by their own bootstraps, damn it?
Yeah, or live in a one-bedroom apartment, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. Well, anytime a study like this is done, you hear right-wingers and people who say we should have no minimum wage or it shouldn't be any higher. They say, why do all these people need two-bedroom apartments anyway?
Yeah.
I mean, why? Everybody should just live in a one-bedroom apartment.
I mean, it makes sense if you live in New York City or Boston or San Francisco, places where the rent is so high because
right.
there's a lot of income disparity and there's a tech industry there. But if you're in the middle of the country, say you're in Wyoming, you should be able to afford that. Working 40 hours a week, you deserve it.
You've got to applaud states like Illinois and New York that are introducing a $15 minimum wage, but it's still not enough for a two-bedroom apartment in many parts of those states. Properties are also overvalued in the United States in general, but lawmakers, that's a sort of different issue lawmakers can look at. There are many places in the country where a full-time minimum wage job won't even get you a dignified one-bedroom apartment, and you're sort of alluding to that, Pat. Many people naively look around at this $15 minimum wage proposal and they say, oh my God, it's some radical communist abstraction that's crazy. It's now part of the DNC platform for good reason, even though Hillary Clinton, for some reason, wanted a $12 rather than a $15 minimum wage. We can probably thank Bernie Sanders, at least in part, for that. But it's still not even that much.
Right. And this isn't an entitlement or a handout. You're working for this money. And if you work a 40-hour-a-week job, I mean, you should be able to afford basic things like food, like healthcare,
absolutely,
like shelter. I mean, that's first and foremost.
If we want to think about this in one other way, and I think you probably can predict where I'm going because I've talked about this before, basic income, right? Even if we don't increase the minimum wage or restructure other aspects of the economy and work culture, forget about all of that. Even just a $750 a month basic income, which is $9,000 per year, which is sort of on the low end, right? I would like to see more done as a basic income, but let's say you did that. Even that would push many, many people, not everyone by any means, given how much housing costs in many parts of this country, but that would push many people closer to being able to actually afford housing. And let me mention something else. The reason for this 30% limit, right? The idea is you don't spend more than 30% of your income on housing. The reason for that limit is because of some of the other expenses people have. If we moved in the direction of single-payer healthcare and disconnected health insurance from work, you could also then make housing more affordable for people just by virtue of not having to reserve as much money for healthcare.
And the minimum wage also brings up a conversation about corporate welfare because
Yeah.
if you have companies out there like Walmart paying their workers $7.25 an hour, those people still have to get by, and they're going to do so based on government programs that may be food stamps, that may be public housing. So in a roundabout sort of way, we're paying for their corporate profits.
Absolutely. And this is something we've talked about before, which is you have many of these businesses which are touted as the sort of be all end all of efficiency and profitability and the American dream because they employ so many people. Yeah, they employ so many people at, in many cases, below subsistence level wages. And how is that money being made up? It's being made up by government programs, which are funded by your tax dollars. So this idea that people have of it's a great business decision how Walmart and other companies have structured, and they're totally self-sufficient. They're not self-sufficient. Many of their employees would literally die if it weren't for the fact that they're making up some money, either in terms of welfare programs, food stamps, whatever the case may be, Medicaid, through taxpayer-funded government welfare programs. If you eliminate that, McDonald's and Walmart are far less viable as businesses.
But of course, a right winger would say, well, we should just take out food stamps and public housing
Right.
and all these social safety nets to begin with. But then why even have a government?
Untenable, untenable. And, however you want to approach the solutions to this problem, and reasonable people can differ about the best way to approach it. This is not sustainable. That's what I think many people are missing, sort of going about their day like there's something even remotely sustainable about this when there isn't. There isn't. It's going to break one way or another. It's sort of already breaking, and it's broken already for many, many people. Send me your thoughts about this. What do you think? I'm on Twitter at @DPakman. The show is on Twitter at David Pakman Show. Talk to me there. Today's program is made possible by Tagadab, the hosting specialists, offering a range of flexible hosting packages, including dedicated, VPS, and cloud server options, as well as custom server solutions and UK-based co-location services for your business or project. Tagadab's web hosting services support a wide range of customers and businesses worldwide, including bloggers, tech startups, financial traders, gamers, web developers, and more. And Tagadab has a really user-friendly interface, so you don't have to worry about being super tech savvy. They can automate almost everything you need for total ease of use. They are really proud of their team of expert hosting specialists who are also their support team. 70% of their business comes from repeat orders and recommendations. With a growing number of people interested in moving their businesses and projects to the cloud, Tagadab is currently offering our viewers and listeners a 20 British pound free credit, about 24 US dollars, to all customers signing up to give you a chance to try the service. This is a limited availability offer, first come, first served, for viewers and listeners of the David Pakman Show. To take advantage of it, go to signup.tagadab.com/TDPS and use the offer code TDPS20, all one word, all lowercase, during account registration.